Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin. As always, before we jump into the show, I do have to plug our Patreon. I know I say it every week and everybody's sick to the back teeth of hearing it, but it's how we keep the show going. It's the literal lifeline. So if you can, head over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology podcast. You can sign up for £3 a month. So it's less than buying me or Mags a cup of coffee. You get a bonus episode every single week in the form of a short Q&A with our guests. You get the entire back catalogue of the whole series. So all 300 episodes are available on our Patreon, which aren't available anywhere else. And you get the light-hearted, fun Viking smut episode that myself, Mags, and Claire do, where we look at amateur Viking erotica, which is a lot of fun and just a very light-hearted touch. And you get those on the Patreon as well. So if you like the sound of any of that, like I say, head over to Patreon/Nordic Mythology podcast. And if you can't, just a 5-star rating, positive review wherever you get your podcast. Maybe somebody else will discover it. But let's get into today's show. I know we have a lot of listeners who love this topic. We had a bunch of comments about it, so I'm super excited. So first, I have to introduce our lovely in-house archaeologist and my co-host, Mags Havgar, who sometimes I forget, but not this week.
You did it, Dan!
I did.
Yay!
I did.
We're back on the streak.
And yeah, and then today's guest is Matthias Toplak. I didn't ask you before. Is that how we pronounce the surname? Yeah. Matthias Toplak. So Matthias is the head of the Viking Museum in Hetebu in northern Germany, and has a PhD in medieval archaeology with a focus on the Viking Age. But today we're going to look at cats, domesticated cats, domesticated horses, and their role within the Viking Age, which I know a lot of us with female pets, feline pets,
there you go.
will enjoy. So, Matthias, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, many thanks for the invitation.
Oh, you're welcome. Like I say, we're super excited to get into this. I saw your cat joining us for a second. What's their name?
This is the smaller one, Yuka Pekka. He's sitting next to me now. I have 2 of them.
Oh, okay. Was that what came first, the love of cats or the research?
It's the love of cats, or being slave to a cat, actually.
Yeah.
As expected.
Yeah, anybody who's had a cat certainly understands that. Which is, I think, what makes this an interesting topic, because everybody thinks of dogs being very closely linked with humans and their domestication and the help that they give. I guess with the Egyptians, you get a worship of cats, but domestication of cats doesn't really always come up, I guess, or seem to. I don't know. I'm not sure where we're going to go with this, because it's not a topic we've ever really looked at, covered. The only time I ever see cats in connection with Nordic mythology or the Viking Age is just linked to Freya. That's the extent of it. That's kind of all I know about this. So, do you have a starting off point you think may be best?
Yeah. I was just wondering, because when you Google cats and Viking Age at the internet, you find pictures of these beautiful Norwegian forest cats, these huge animals with lots of fur and, of course, horned hands. And, of course, you've got this image of Freya as fertility goddess being connected to cats with this chariot drawn by 2 large cats. And I really wondered some years ago, is this everything we know about cats in the Viking Age? There is a very short Swedish uppsats, a small article written about finding of cats in graves in the Viking Age and the Vandal period, so the time before the Viking Age. And that's almost everything you can find about the cats in the Viking Age. So I just started digging, and it was interesting to see how cats appeared in the Viking Age in Northern Europe and which connections could be found. And especially that this famous picture of Freya and this connection between cats and fertility and female sorceress and whatever. It's just simply bullshit.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a strong
No,
start. You can. The swearing wasn't the issue. I think that it's just neither of us.
The fact that it is bullshit.
It's the cliffhanger for the rest of the show, so that everyone sticks to the channel, to the video.
I am so beyond excited now. Could you please let us know, enlighten us, because this is my bread and butter. Why is it bullshit? Give it to me.
Because there are almost no hints. There is only one source that mentions Freya in connection with cats, which is Snorri's Prosa Edda, which is, of course,
famously very, very reliable.
Absolutely. It's as you all know, Snorri was living several hundred years after the Viking Age. He was Christian. He grew up in a Christian society. He knew all this antique mythology, all this antique literature. Of course, he was a very well-educated man.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only source where Freya is mentioned to have a wagon with 2 large cats on it. And if you look closer into Norse mythology, you find lots of animals as companions to the gods. You all know Odin's horse Sleipnir and his wolves and ravens and so on. And all these animals, every single one of them has a name mentioned in the Old Norse sources, except for Freya's 2 cats. And this made me somehow curious, because when you're looking in the internet and you're Googling Freya's cats, you find 2 names. Which sound perfectly Old Norse. It's Bryngol and Tryggol. So Amber and something else I've forgotten. So makes perfect sense. But then I tried to find out where these names actually came from. And it's a fantasy novel written by an American author, Diana Paxton, in 1984. And she simply invented these 2 names because she was so disappointed that all animals in the Old Norse literature, they have their names, except for the 2 most important creatures of all, of course, of these 2 cats. So she made up 2 names. And because everyone was looking for names, they were immediately accepted as truth. And no one really looked into the sources, as it's common in archaeology.
That makes me so sad on her behalf, because I'm like, authors should be free to just make up stuff for novels, but then people check it's a novel. It's not a historical document.
Yeah, exactly. So she made no mistake. She did something everyone was looking for, but many fans simply accepted these 2 names that have been invented.
Am I right in thinking that she also has some historical, or what are presenting as historical books? I feel like I've seen. Is it Diana?
Like historical fiction?
No, well, not fiction. I'm sure I've seen her name pop up a bunch of times. Let me. Did you say Diana Paxton?
Yeah, Paxton.
Paxton.
Yeah, she wrote several novels about using Old Norse mythology and good written stuff.
Yeah. Okay, maybe it's not the one I thought there was one. Maybe it's runes I'm thinking of, that I keep seeing, like a rune book that people always put forward. I didn't realize that she was just a fiction writer. I never.
It's an important distinction.
Yeah, it is, because I'm sure I often see like her rune book presented by people as like, read this. This is a good starting place for runes.
And for returning to this chariot or this wagon idea, if you look into antique mythology, which was, as I said, known to Snorri, you'll find that several of these antique fertility goddesses, such as no, I've forgotten her name. It will pop up later again. So this picture of a fertility goddess with a wagon drawn by 2 cats, it's quite common in antique mythology.
So therefore, it should apply, or could apply, to Norse. Yeah.
Snorri simply took over this idea.
I think both Dan and I are chuckling right now, because this is not the first time where both of us simultaneously have been like, holy shit, We
Mhm.
had no idea. And
I'm
this
sorry.
tracks.
No, it's fine. That's what we're here for. We want,
We love this.
yeah, this is
I live
the,
for this.
yeah, it's the best part. But so what about?
But also but I also just want to let you know, Matthias, that I work with the Oseberg material. That is what
Mhm.
I'm doing for my PhD, and it's so fun for me. And I've worked with this material for like more than 10 years now, so it's so fun to get. And I've heard like the whole Cat and Freya thing, but that's never been kind of where my focus has been. So I've just kind of been like, yeah, okay. So it's so fun to be updated and be like, no, actually, guys,
Mhm.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I know more than I feel like some of my colleagues do now. I like this a lot.
Yep. It's just I do not want to destroy all this connection between cats and the vulva, because we have some evidence pointing to this magical aspect. You mentioned Overbeck. You have got this beautiful cat face in one of the wagons
Yep.
at the Oseberg burial,
Yep.
and we of course have this.
Where they're all like this.
Yeah.
The terrified cat that are all like.
But
They're
it has
shocked.
this
Mhm.
nice ears,
Yeah.
Mhm.
and of course we have got this famous mentioning of a vulva in the Eric saga, Reusa, where she's wearing gloves made of cat skin, which is absolutely cruel in my opinion. But anyway, she did so.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on if the cat died of natural causes. I would be okay with it, because then it's just kind of reuse, reduce, recycle, I guess.
Okay. So it was her favorite pet.
Yeah. Let's go with that. It makes it less
Okay.
horrifying for all of us with pets.
The usable taxidermy. Maybe.
Yeah.
So that chariot is obviously the other mention of
What chariot, Dan?
is it the chariot from the one from Osterberg or the sled?
The one from it's no.
With the
Oseberg, it's a wagon, singular wagon.
wagon.
It's not a chariot.
The
Just
wagon.
since there are two archaeologists here, I just
Mhm.
want to be a bit nitpicky about chariot. It's
No,
like
that's fine.
slightly different.
So
It's a wagon.
the wagon, that's the only other mention of cats that I can think of. But to put them on there, I assume there must be some importance to cats. Do we know why? Can we speculate why this beautiful piece of art was made with these cats on?
As a cat lover, I can speculate that there might be the same reasons behind, or which we are using cats as pets, or cats are using us. To be honest, I think there is on the one hand they're a very exotic animal in the Viking Age because they are quite new. The first evidence of domesticated cats in Northern Europe is just some centuries older than the Viking Age, so they just appear in the, let's say, later Roman Iron Age migration period. That's the time when the cats come to the north. Of course, we have wild cats before, but as you know, they're not used to humans, so they are very shy and perhaps something you might hunt, but it's nothing you are keeping as a pet at home. So the cat is a quite new animal, and this I suppose that it's very exotic, luxurious. It's something that not everyone has, and we can find cat bones from the Viking Age, from the Vendel period on, in high statues graves, especially. Most of these, let's say, male burials with quite a lot of animals, burials of high-ranking chieftains or whatever. So in the first hand, the cat is something that is exotic and, yeah, something full of prestige. And on the other hand, I suppose that is this idea of an animal as being a liminal animal that is able to cross between this world and the other world, because of their possibilities to sneak around and the silent hunters, the predators. This might be something that is seen in this connection with magic or the other world.
That's just reminded me of the other mention I can think of. Am I right in saying that cat's footsteps are one of the impossible ingredients that make up the bindings of Fenrir?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know where I've just pulled that from somewhere.
Your brain, your library, the little library in your brain worked overtime there and just pulled out that thing.
300 episodes, I've learned something. So yeah,
you're a pro.
I guess does that lean to it being a a magical. These cats have this magical skill. I mean, cats' footsteps are quiet, except the one that lives with me. She's clumbersome, and she jumps off the worktop, and it sounds like a thud.
Boof.
But for the most part, cats are quiet creatures. Yeah, I don't know. Do you that mention? Is there anything that we can derive for that?
Yeah, I guess it points exactly into this direction, which you mentioned, that cats have this special ability. On the one hand, this pure elegance, and on the other hand, the perfect predator, hunting at night, almost unseen and silent, and this makes them perhaps some creature of the night, some creature walking on the border between this world, the other world. In the same way, for example, as the horses, on another way, because they are a means of transport and are able to transport the dead from one world to the other one, just to make a bridge to the next animal we would like to speak about.
Yeah. So aside from the mention and the link with Freya in the mythological sense, and then obviously we have the wagon. When it comes to the archaeological finds of, like you mentioned, the remains of a cat being found, is that common? Are there a lot of cats being domesticated throughout the Viking Age? Is it something that every farm would have? Would it be a case that people would have in the way that a farm would have a cat now to get rid of vermin and keep pests under control? Is that something we can say?
No, I would say not. Not on the smaller farmsteads somewhere out in the countryside, not as cats are common today. This is something we can see at these proto-urban centers, such as for example, Hedeby. And we can see in the bone material from Hedeby that there were lots of cats that were also slaughtered for their fur. So they were slaughtered and skinned, and the fur was sold as simply for trade. But they are hanging around. And later in present-day Schleswig, so when the settlement of Hedeby moved to present-day Schleswig, cats became much more domesticated, which you can see by their teeth, so that they are not longer used to their, let's say, proper food of hunting someone, but now they are getting food from us humans. And by this are going to be domesticated.
Okay.
Huh. So domesticated cats then weren't necessarily really a thing in at least the early Viking Age? Would that be correct to say, or am I off?
It's a good question. I'm not sure about it.
No, okay. Yeah.
Because we do not have any examinations of the teeth of cats, for example, in graves somewhere in the countryside of Denmark or Sweden, as far as I know.
Yeah, because there was an interesting thing that I thought of earlier, because I haven't been able to pursue this myself, but I've come across several mentions that there is skeletal material from the Oseberg burial that might be a cat, but no one has ever investigated it. And I'm like, but what are the cat bones? Why is there a cat in here? Is it a cat? But yeah, so there isn't really that much material either, or the material that we do have hasn't been investigated in that respect. Would that be? Am I correct did I understand it correctly?
Yeah, at least in these smaller graves. So
Yeah,
we
the
have
smaller graves.
investigations of the cats from Hedeby.
Yeah.
But not, for example, from the graves from Birka, which is also quite interesting, because we have one of these, let's say, high-ranking warriors, at least a male person, I assume a male person, buried as a high-ranking warrior with weapons and everything in a chamber grave. And he has at least fur of a cat with him, because he have cat claws in the grave. So there might have been a male warrior being buried with a cat.
Huh.
Because obviously, when you hear of Vikings, you think of bears and wolves. They're the ones that are very typical, aren't they? That you get your berserker, your Ulfhednar, these kind of figures. Even though I would argue that cats are probably the apex predator. Certainly tigers. I would say, like, there's nothing built better than a cat. So maybe we had some cat warriors out there. If we had a
Please give me a single source for bears in Old Norse mythology.
for bears.
Bears. There are the berserkers, but they are not related to bears, at least in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. We've been through this, Dan.
Yeah.
And we're lacking evidence for bears that somehow play a role in Old Norse mythology.
There's okay, because they are so. I'm trying to think now if I've ever heard of like a bear being. Did you hear? I guess
you have, because some of the textiles that I've drawn, the tapestries, show what we interpret as bear-like warriors. And then there have been leaps of interpretations linking that to possible berserkers. And then, yeah, exactly, one of the pillows.
Yeah, but I was thinking more of like just a bear, or just a bear on its own, not linked with. I guess does that not appear anywhere?
I think we have some burial material with claws in them.
No, I was more meaning like but in like the mythology, like a dimension of just a bear aside from a human.
We have evidence for bears in graves. There are lots of burials with claws, for example, where someone might have been buried with the fur of a bear. But as far as I know, there's not a single source from Old Norse mythology where the bear is mentioned in the same way as, for example, a horse or even a wolf. They do not play any role.
No, I can't.
Which is
I'm
funny.
not an expert. Yeah, it is funny. It's like, it's very, like, the animals that are mentioned are very, like, specific.
Mm-hmm. But because you get a lot of, I guess you get eagles mentioned quite often. But yeah, you don't. That's got me thinking. I can't think of a time where there's a bear. I can think of a wolf in the Volsunga saga. They see it.
Well, now we're over on the sagas, not the mythology, but yeah.
Would that not count?
Well, the sagas aren't the same thing as the mythology, Dan.
But I would say that the Volsunga saga is myth.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to be so harsh, but I'm just like, Dan, the myths and they are different from the stories about like supposedly lived people. Or do you have input, Matthias?
The Volsunga saga is based on Eddic material, so let's
okay. All right.
Let me have that.
You know what? You know what? I'll bow down. I'm sorry.
But okay, then you get Odin's wolves mentioned. You get wolves. You get ravens. You get eagles. You even get a goat, I guess. The one that stands on the root. 2 goats.
Thor's goats. He has a chariot.
Oh, Thor's goats as well. Yes, yeah. I was thinking of the one that gives the mead. Obviously. You get a cow, I guess, at the inception of the earth. The salt.
You got the squirrel, right? The one that runs up and down Yggdrasil. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lots of snakes, dragons.
Dragons, yeah. Oh, yeah, no bears. That's so fascinating because it is. I guess I've never thought of it before, but it's if you say pick to most people, name an animal associated with Vikings, Viking Age, Norse mythology, they will say a bear. Maybe some will say wolf, but I would guess most would say bear. That's so interesting.
The closest thing that I can think of that comes close to, but not actually being a bear, in any written Old Norse sources that I can think of, would be the name Björn. That's the only thing that I can think of.
Yeah. Dude, can you hypothesize why that might maybe?
No, actually, I do not have any ideas. Because bears have been present in Viking Scandinavia. They are a constant threat to society, I guess, at least when you're living somewhere up in the north. And we do have them in the grave materials. We have at least one saga or a Sauter that is mentioning bear, which is the Odin Sauter of this guy Odin from Iceland, who's going to Greenland and buying an ice bear, and who's going to give it as a present to a gift. Sorry, that's my Swedish coming through. To the Danish king Sven Estridsson, who's living in Hedeby at the time, by the way. But they are not appearing in the Old Norse mythology, which is
it's really fascinating.
That is, yeah.
Considering that they are native to the environment.
That's kind of blown my mind a little bit because they would make fantastic fur and warmth and clothing, probably would eat a bear too. So
Can you eat a bear? I'm not sure.
yeah, you can eat bear. I'm
And
sure.
wouldn't it be quite tangy? I
I'm
guess
pretty.
it would be really tangy.
I'm pretty sure people
Probably.
bears they hunt today in North America. Pretty. I mean, you can eat You
Probably.
can eat anything. If it's going to
If
be
you put
nice
your
or
mind
not, I
to
don't
it.
know. But
Yeah.
if you're hungry enough, I'm pretty sure you can eat bear though.
A puppy, at least.
Yeah, but I mean, at worst, you're going to get the fur, which is a fantastic piece of clothing to keep you warm in those colder climates. So, and do we have? I'm kind of shocked by this. Do we have images of bears in the artwork, and or only linked to humans?
That's actually a good question because I can't bring any that shows like a non-hybrid type of bear. Do you know anything more about that, Matthias?
A non-hybrid, so you mean a real bear?
Just like a real bear, like in the way that we have like quote unquote real horses.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I can only think of hybrid figures.
There is these hybrid from Overbeck tapestry, which might be humans, and there is a hybrid from the Torslunda plates.
Yeah,
which is
but do we have
Viking,
any?
but pre-Viking.
Yeah, but do we have any that aren't hybrids?
I'm not sure. I do not know of any.
No, me neither.
That's so interesting. But the chat says that you can eat bear, so I'm gonna go with that they were eaten. Wow, that is fascinating. I would love. I don't know. I can't even think of a reason why they wouldn't be in there if they're around.
But to kind of get back to like the original animal that we were talking about, cats. So just because I get so excited and I start forgetting things. So there are cats in burials, and there are some imagery of that have been interpreted as cats. Are there any more than the wagon from Oseberg?
There are some depictions in the Brua style, one of these, let's say, quite early Viking Age art styles, and it's always a question: are these bears because they have ears?
Exactly.
Bear kind animals because they have these round ears, but there are also some depictions where they have very pointy ears, which might be perhaps cats. There is a very nice sword hilt with probably cats on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Cool. I didn't know about it. I think.
Some advertising. It's published in my paper about cats. The Warrior and the Cat. Catchy title.
Yeah.
One of my better moments.
Nice. I'm very intrigued by that.
Yeah. So.
But yeah, sorry. The second part that I was wondering about was, so we've kind of, the whole fertility Freya thing is probably a Snorri invention since it doesn't appear anywhere else. But then, do cats appear in any other written sources? Like, so you have the magic aspect that way with the cat footprints, but other mentions.
Yeah, they appear, but only on some very few passages, and always in connection to some kind of supernatural demons.
Ooh.
So there are these.
That links with cats. I think
absolutely, yeah. Can be assholes. You have this famous mentioning in the Gylfaginning, where Thor has to lift the cat of Loki.
Yeah.
And the cat is the Midgard serpent. So there we have this connection with cats and some kind of demonized creatures, and they appear in some sagas. I'm not sure. Rudi Simic will kill me for this. But yeah, there are some passages where cat appears.
Okay, so Loki and the I wonder why they chose a cat.
Because it's so fluffy.
Yeah, but because I guess there are some theories or thoughts that Snorri made that story up. That it's I guess Utgardalok is a way to humanize Thor and the gods and make them appear to be less than gods and to be more human. So if that's the case, because I believe that Snorri is the only place that you find that story, and you get this idea of Freya and the cats only coming from Snorri. Maybe Snorri just loved cats, and he just wanted to sneak these
Make sure that there were cats in there.
Yeah, these lovable animals. He was just like, where can I fit a cat into this? Because I don't really know what else to put here.
I suggested into some of my colleagues to get my cats into every of my lectures, and it works quite often. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, wonderful. Yeah, I wonder, because like he could have chose a wolf paw. Thor has to lift a wolf paw or a bear paw, or it could have just been, I guess, a snake would be a little too close to Jormungandr, but it being a cat, maybe it's quite interesting. Maybe I don't know, because the fact that it's a cat that he has to lift also makes it seem like it's an easy task. It's not very difficult, whereas a wolf and a bear, I guess, would be more of a difficult thing because they're quite ferocious. So maybe they saw cats as quite fluffy and nice because they'd never met the big cats.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to step back at least 200 years in time to the date when Snorri wrote this, and I think the most fluffy and harmless thing you can find on a farmstead in Iceland might have been a cat.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And on the other side, it's the most dangerous creature ever imagined in Old Norse mythology, with the Jormungandr.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's that juxtaposition between the
and anyone who's ever met a cat trying to lift a cat that doesn't want to be lifted off of something is, easier said than done.
They're quite
regardless
long,
of yeah.
Yeah, they. I mean, domesticated cats are still fierce predators. They can get you if they want. That's okay. Are we missing any before we move to horses? I guess, are we missing cats? Any references to cats?
What I find highly interesting and where I do not have any explanations to is the shift from cats being something luxurious, something that is being put in graves for females, children, but also high-ranking aristocratic, let's say, warriors, to the point when cats were used, or the fur of cats was used simply in trade, and cats were slaughtered and skinned.
Mm-hmm.
So something happened in the perception of cats in this time, and this is quite interesting, I think. Do we have so many cats in the later Viking Age in places such as Hedeby?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. That is really interesting. I mean, since you mentioned the fact that the places where we do have the most evidence of like physical, like archaeological evidence of cats is in kind of pre-urban areas, does spring to mind that kind of when cats run rampant, there can become a lot more of them very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I'm not saying that that's the cause, but it just like my brain automatically goes there.
Do we know if there are any particular benefits from cat fur? Because obviously I've never owned cat gloves or a cat coat. Are there any benefits that may lead towards that it's extra warm, maybe, or anything like that? Do we know?
It's warm, it's soft.
So's a lot of other fur,
yeah. It's something you do not have to hunt somewhere out on the forest. We do not have any forests in Hedeby in the Viking Age, but you do not have to hunt somewhere up in the north, but it's something that it's quite close to you.
Open the door and grab the first one you see.
But is that the case that when cats were introduced, they would have been brought in as a domestic animal rather than a wild animal? Because obviously, introduction of animals goes wrong all the time, or happens in something might be brought over by somebody, and then a couple get away, kind of like the budgies in London. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but there's a lot of budgies that fly around London because somebody.
You mean the parrots?
I thought they were like, I think something like budgies, or parakeets maybe.
The green ones.
Yeah, they parakeets.
Yeah.
Okay,
I think they're a subsection of parrots. I do know this because when my parents lived in London, one got down their chimney and my mom had to chase it out through a window.
Yeah.
And they lived in like urban London.
Yeah, but that's
and suddenly there was a green bird tearing up their ceiling.
But that's because somebody had some as a pet and they got out, and then 20 generations later, there's now a ton of parakeets flying around London. So do we know what that could be like? Are they just going to be around the village, or do we have wild cats at some point? And is it even possible to tell?
I'm not sure if it's possible to interbreed between domesticated cats that came from, in fact, Northern Africa through the Roman Empire and through Central Europe up to the north with white cats in Scandinavia.
Northern Africa. That's where they came from, obviously, of course.
Okay.
So they are these very tiny tabby or tiger cats, the ones with the Viking age. So not these large furry cats. So actually my cats are way too big for being a proper Viking age cat.
That's maybe something that I've missed. So these are the domesticated ones. They're called. To me, when we use the word domesticated, I think of a pet. But are we not necessarily talking about just somebody keeping it as a pet? It's that it becomes a type, or almost like a breed of cat that's been just domesticated over time and then brought up. How do we, I guess, define that word domesticated?
Difficult. It's used to the human, and I think that the cats came to Europe as pets.
Okay.
I know this story. I'm not quite sure if it's true because I'm not a Roman archaeologist, but that cats came to the Roman Empire from Egypt, and they were really used as pets for all these bored ladies hanging around in Rome. And on this way, cats came up to the north, to Central Europe, and also to Scandinavia. So they might have been real pets in our modern sense of the word, being something you have on your lap and you're petting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is a relatively easy pet to transport as well, considering like just the size.
Have you ever tried transporting a cat to the vets?
Yes, I have. I've had a cat escape on me on the highway.
Really?
So yeah. We managed to catch him, but how do I say this? Size-wise and weight-wise, if you got a basket, you can stuff them in there, theoretically.
If you've got a large bear skin, you can throw over them and then bundle them up really tight. You can get them in.
And they might follow you on your ships.
Yeah.
Which is quite common still today.
Do we know about, because obviously got me thinking like wider than just cats, because I'm thinking of how cats are used today for vermin and kind of pest control on farms. Do we know much about what the vermin landscape would have been like in the Viking Age? Would there have been that problem of rats? I guess I can't think of like a mention of a rat in anything, but I assume they would have been about.
I'm not sure if there were rats. I think rats are also quite new to Northern Europe, but mice. Okay,
yeah. But what about with I guess same with mice? Do you think they would have been used to? Would mice have been seen as a problem? Do we have any mention of them being? Because obviously today people get it. If you have a mouse in your house, for the most part, people see that's quite negative and they want to get rid of it. But I don't know if that would have been the same thought in the Viking Age. Would you have that same opinion of having a mouse running around, or would it just be normal and part of everyday life?
That's a good question. I
Maybe.
can imagine that mice are everywhere and that they are a very large problem, but it's just my personal opinion. I do not know of. Do I know of any sources where mice are mentioned? I'm not sure, but at least in let's say in your folklore, there are quite lots of stories of mice that are
Yeah.
a threat to the entire society, to the entire village.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was
think
just wondering
so.
whether they had that kind of dual purpose, maybe of
But that's interesting though, because like here's where I'm like trying to also keep kind of, folklore and things we know from kind of peri-modern farm life kind of separate from Viking Age farm life, because we don't know whether the same things applied,
Yeah. But I guess cats, even cats today, they still have that hunting instinct. They still cannot help but catch something. You can have the most sluggish, like lazy Garfield like cat, but if they see a mouse or a bird, they are fierce predators. So I assume that has to be the same in the Viking Age, that those cats still have that, they have that built into them of where they would just take care of business per se.
It's perhaps the same that we admire of cats today. It might be the same as in the Viking Age, because you have these animals that on the one hand is so fluffy and you can pet them and they are attracted to humans, and on the other side, as you said, they can explode from one second to the other one, and then they're dangerous creatures, except their size.
Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe because that I guess that's part of what I'm thinking as well. Is it's another mouth to feed in a way. So whether they're feeding themselves or they're having to be fed because they're a pet, you would think that they would want there to be some sort of benefit to it, which is how human animal relationships tend to have evolved over time, is because the animal gives some sort of benefit, like horses and dogs with
Well, we
warnings, that
assume
kind.
so. It could also just be for the emotions. We don't know. We weren't there.
Maybe, yeah. Yeah, maybe though. Maybe
I'm sorry. Matthias,
it
this
is
is something
true.
that Dan and I always come back to, because I always try to push back against like solely having functionalistic interpretations, because although I do often agree with them, I just think it's fun
It is
to be
true
a
though,
bit of
because
an asshole.
no, you're right, because I think that again, it's that forgetting of Vikings, well, I say Vikings, but people living in Scandinavia in the Viking Age as humans
The
and not.
companionship.
Well, yeah, but they're people, and they probably would have taken joy from having a little cuddly pet. But we've got this ingrained image of a Viking being this big, tough, rough person who just probably has no time for cuddling a little kitty, whereas they're people, and I love cuddling my dog. So why wouldn't they get that joy and that release and happiness from having a pet? It's just not something I guess you see or think of very often. Yeah, bless them.
True. But I do think it's interesting though, Matthias, because like I must admit that it's never really occurred to me before that cats hadn't really been properly like, well, they had been introduced, but they weren't really common yet. That's interesting, because I haven't. I guess that's just a modern assumption, because we're just so used to the
Yep.
domesticated cats
Mm.
today. I'm just like, yeah, sure, whatever. But
We see farmstead, and cats are just a normal imagery of every
Yep.
normal scene of every farmstead.
Yep,
Yeah.
very interesting.
Okay, so because your main study was on horses and cats. I mean, I am a dog lover. So, but again, that I think with dogs though, I can't think of a mention of a domesticated dog within the mythology. Or at all. You get wolves, but I don't know whether dogs were domesticated. But horses, you do get mentioned.
Well, we do have evidence of domesticated dogs, and they are mentioned in sagas at least.
Are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there were 6 dogs in Oseberg. Just saying.
Oh, really?
But they weren't. Huh?
Sorry?
No, go on, Matthias.
No, go again. Go ahead.
You're of course absolutely right. There are quite a lot of dogs in graves. Oseberg, for example, Ladby, Gokstad. So we have, let's say, 100 of graves with dogs. And to mention, there is one dog in Old Norse mythology, which is Garm.
Oh, okay.
Oh, of course.
But it's the only one I know of.
Yeah. But I
Which
guess
again, quite funny.
There's but with Garm, I think there's some thoughts that maybe it's just Fenrir twice, or there's like it's kind of it's Gamnor wolf. I don't know enough about that.
But again, we have an animal which is that common to us that it would be normal for us that everyone who ever lived somehow had an idea of dog. And again, it's missing in the Old Norse mythology. We have wolves, of course, but we do not have proper dogs. At least for one, which, as you said, might be kind of wolfish.
Yeah, that is interesting because, like I say, I love dogs. I assume dogs would have been around, but
But they were. We know that they were around, but maybe they didn't have they weren't necessarily connected to mythology in the same way.
Yeah. But horses. I know that you said when we spoke before, you said that cats and horses were your particular area, and when it comes to horses, obviously we get Sleipnir as the main one in the mythology, and I would say that horses, without doubt, are the most important domesticated animal in human history. As much as I love dogs, and I would be like, dogs are really cool companions, and I love cats, but horses have done more for humans than any other animal. Without horses, when it comes to like farming and plow and just transport, the work that they have done for human evolution is incredible. So what do we see in terms of horses when it comes to, I guess, the archaeological side of things? Because the mythology, again, you get Sleipnir, but other than that, how many other horses do we get mentioned?
Almost every god has a horse, and most of these horses, or I think all horses, also have names. Skinfaxi, Gulfaxi, whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah.
They play a very huge role in the Norse cult. If you think of the Freya saga, Ravnkell saga, how does it go on? Freyfaxi? No. Freysgolvi? I forgot. Whatever. So they are a very important animal in Old Norse Celtic activities. So they appear almost everywhere in the archaeological features, in ritual deposits, but also in graves. In Old Norse mythology, at least according to my opinion, they are more or less the means of transport. There's Sleipnir, which has some, let's say, kind of individual character, but all the other animals, the other horses, they are just riding equipment, in a way. Even so, they have a very important function, as I showed this beautiful picture stone, as you saying Vida before. So, especially horses enable you to enter the afterlife, especially Odin's hall, Valhall, where all these fallen warriors may live forever on. So there is something very important about horses, on the one hand being the everyday animal for almost all activities, and on the other hand, for this idea of coming to the afterworld.
Yeah, they have to be even on a on a war front as well. They have to be incredibly. A mounted soldier is scary versus somebody on foot. So the uses of horses, the utilitarian, I guess, of them in nature, means that they must have been so valuable to
It's
People saw
also
all human
really
history, I think.
like it's a really powerful animal to behold too.
Mhm.
Even though I know that modern horses weren't necessarily the ones that were there in the Viking Age, but it's a big animal.
I had to
And
wrangle 2 horses the other day, actually.
oh geez,
They got out from a field, and I was walking Rocco, and I looked in the field where I'd taken for a run. Like, that's an odd looking thing. What's that? And it just kind of moved his head. I'm not too sure. And then it both like ran across the field. I was like, okay, that's the horse from the adjoining field is a horse field, and they'd managed to sneak out over. I took Rocco home, and I was like, okay, I need to try and do something because there's a road either side, and I let people. I like tried to find the owners, managed to get a phone call to the owners, and another gentleman was there who knew the horses, and we kind of in the dark with head torches, like snuck up on these 2 horses. They're very friendly. They're called Buzz and Woody. They're
oh,
they're very sweet horses. They're super friendly. If you ever go near their field, they come up to the fence and kind of put their head over and let you stroke them. They're super nice. So we kind of like snuck around the field and managed to get hold of one of them and put a bridle on him and walk him back. And as soon as he started going, the other one followed and was running up the road, kind of like, "Oh, don't leave me! I want to come.
oh,
Don't I don't want to be left behind." But in that moment, I was like, "Okay, you are actually a really scary thing," because I think we become very familiar with horses, but trying to hold on to a horse that wants to move its head is a very different thing because if he wants to move his head, he's moving his head. I'm not doing anything. Thankfully, there was no risk of them bucking or kicking. Um, but even just that power, that strength of wanting to move, I'm we were lucky that he let us lead him back to the field because if he didn't want to, we couldn't do anything about it. But it was that realization of just that
how
sheer
big they
power.
are. Yep.
And these are only quite small horses. These aren't, big, like Shire horses, like the really
No,
big,
no,
powerful ones. So
but they're still big.
yeah, they're big enough that that I was cautious. Yeah, it was a fun experience to say the least.
They're very majestic creatures. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this is the reason why they're connected with ideas of elites and mounted warriors and all this stuff. So being on a horseback gives you power and gives you might. And fun fact, by the way, we do not have cavalry in the Viking Age. We
Oh,
have mounted
really?
infantry, but you're not using horses in the on the actual battlefield. So you're not charging into the enemy lines with on horseback, but you're riding to the battlefield, then you're dismounting, and then you're fighting on foot,
Oh,
which
I
is
wonder.
stupid.
Do you think that's because but do you think that's maybe because the horses are so valuable? And it's so sad to say that maybe the horses are deemed so valuable versus human life that they don't want to risk the horses being killed because of their use elsewhere.
I don't think so. It was a new study some years ago that there were horses that were simply bred for being slaughtered in burial rituals.
Oh, okay. Oh,
So
so
especially, for example, in Iceland, hundreds of horses, thousands of horses were killed during burial rituals. For what reason might be. So they're not that valuable. I think it's just the idea fighting from horseback is something that is uncommon,
it
something that's
wasn't
not very usual for the Viking Age warrior.
like if only they'd have known, they could have really have changed the battlefield a little bit. Do you think that I didn't know that they were bred for burials. Did you think that really reiterates that idea that horses somehow carry people to the afterlife? Because why else would you have such emphasis on putting horses in graves?
this idea of a horse as a psychopomp, so as a liminal creature bringing the soul of the deceased to the afterlife, is a very easy explanation. So you might argue for Occam's razor, but as an archaeologist, I do not like easy and monocausal explanations. So I think it's not the only interpretation we can bring forward. There is a very interesting PhD thesis from a guy called Runar Leifsson, who was investigating all these burials with horses on Iceland. And he found out that this idea of killing something living during the funeral ceremony, of bloodshed, of pure violence, might be something that is of importance for the entire ritual. So this idea of a bloody catharsis. So you have this ritual scapegoat, you're killing the horse. It's a very bloody ceremony, the same as we can see, for example, in Oseberg or Gokstad, or as it was depicted by Ibn Fadlan with this funeral ceremony of the Rus in Eastern Europe or in Russia. So this idea of killing something, of blood, seems to be of paramount importance for not all, but at least for some burial rituals in the Viking Age.
I'd love to just know. I'd love to just be able to go back. I know everybody would, but to just be able to see why. And because again, for me and my modern mind, it's clearly. I guess I always go back to or think of the Egyptians because I think that's what I learned at school. Is that we learn in my school anyway, we learned about the Egyptians, this idea of an afterlife, and that you kind of took with you what you have to the afterlife. And I probably apply that to other situations and think of that in this context of the what's in their graves. That's what you're going to take with you. So you have your weapons, but like and the horse, like you say, if it's used mainly for transport, would be to take people to the afterlife, or maybe it's just to get around in the afterlife. People still need to travel, I guess. It's interesting.
Yeah, because it seems to be connected to so many things that are kind of vague to us as well, in my opinion. Because I did tip my toe into this a little bit when I was doing my master's, and I found this kenning. So a simple way of explaining that would be to say like that it's a saying, but it's more than a saying. It's like how you describe something by saying something else, essentially. And a kenning for ship is a sailing wind horse. Which then, to me, I don't know exactly what that means, but it implies something to do with the horse, and that a way to describe a ship is to call it a sailing wind horse. So I don't know necessarily what that thing is, but there's something there that would be understandable for the people at the time.
Yeah.
But this might be connected to the aspect that you have, on the one hand, ships or boats for transport on sea, and for transport on land, you use horses.
Yep.
Yeah.
100% true.
Fascinating. Do we know when it comes to horses? You mentioned in Iceland, obviously, was it just in Iceland they were bred for slaughter in graves, or is that something we see throughout like mainland Scandinavia?
We have. I was looking on Gotland, Viking Age Gotland, as a case study, because they did a lot of work on Gotland, and there might be horse breeding as one of the main economical features of Gotland. So it seems that Gotland was an island that was of importance for horse breeding.
Yeah, they've clearly understood the importance and value in horses, and that's kind of what I was wondering, whether you think that every farm have a horse? Would it be that common? Are we able to tell that?
Depends on the size of the farm, but yes, I would suggest that every free farmer got at least one horse for riding. Yeah, I would think so.
It's super. Yeah, it's super common. Is there anything you think we're missing in terms of horses? Is there any really interesting things we've overlooked?
There is perhaps something we can have in mind for tonight. Think about, because when I was looking at Gotland, I found at least 3 different ways of dealing with horses in the burial ritual. There are some burials where you have only parts of horses, a horse tooth, or perhaps some riding equipment. You have some graves where you have, let's say, the equestrian burial, where you have all the stuff you need for riding. You have bridles, spurs, I suppose not that much, but bridles and horses and everything you need. And you have some burials, cremation burials, where horses and men were cremated together. And Howard Williams, someone I'm really looking up to, once came up with this idea for Anglo-Saxon England, that this is some kind of creating a new identity. Human and animal are melting together in the funeral on the funeral pyre.
Mm-hmm.
And
Really are.
for me, these 3 different ways of dealing with horses in the burial context show that there is not a single explanation for why there is a horse in the grave, but that it depends on the way in which the horse is used, and that there might also be different groups in the same very small region during the same time that are using the same animal in different ways to show a certain signal, a certain identity, to relate to certain ancestors, to certain kind of mythology, or just to use the horse as a symbol for being part of an elite, for being a land-owning family or so. And as I was writing an article about horses in Viking Age Scotland, and I came to the point where I have to draw a conclusion, I was totally stunned, because I couldn't imagine of one conclusion that matches all these different aspects. And this showed me again, as quite often in my life as an archaeologist, that there is not a single explanation for it, something we find at the ground.
That keeps happening to us, Matthias. Like, why? There's never just like an easy answer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My life is fault. Yeah.
Yeah. So is that because I know Howard did? He looked at, is it Heathwood in Derbyshire, the site where there's just mass cremations, and I think, is that somewhere where they had horses and humans cremated together?
Yeah, might be.
Yeah, pretty sure.
If he's watching us, we'll get an email.
Yeah. Hi, Howard, if you're listening.
I know he wrote. I know I learnt of Heathwood from Howard, and that's a spot in Derbyshire that I went to visit. Not there's anything there, but it was a site of like mass Viking cremation. But yeah, Howard's great. He's been on here a couple of times, and he always is great to chat with. But yeah, I think unless there's anything that jumps out, we can wrap this up, and maybe just, if you have time, just see if anybody has any questions for you for maybe 10, 15 minutes, and then let you get on with your evening.
Yeah. Okay.
Wonderful. Matthias, is there anywhere that you want to point people towards? Do you have a public kind of profile, maybe like on Instagram or wherever your articles are?
No, but I have a web page.
Okay.
Ooh.
Where I'm uploading most of the articles I'm writing, and you can find it as it's a German. It's just in German, but it's Wikinger minus Toplak, so which is Viking in German and my last name, obviously.
Okay. Perfect. Oh, I forgot the time travel question.
No, but we can let's do we'll do our handles, then we can ask Matthias the questions, because then he can get a couple minutes to think about it.
Okay. Yeah. We'll save it for the Q&A. We'll add it into that. Mags, where can people find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Archaeomags, Archeo with a K.
And then for me, Daniel_Farrand1, Hans voting for the business, and then Nordic Mythology podcast across the board. And like I say, hit the like, subscribe button on YouTube if you want to watch all the episodes. And then, yeah, I think that's it.